Hello, this video presents a few creative writing activities for receptive bilinguals, and it is part of the series Small HL Teaching, Big Learning, where we feature bite-sized strategies that will improve HL teaching and learning. In this video, I will talk about 3 creative writing activities that I have used in my own teaching and that I am arbitrarily calling change the genre, rewrite, making it your own, and mix it up. The first 2 of these, change the genre and rewrite, making it your own, essentially involve taking somebody else's language and mixing it up, changing it up a bit to create something new. Mix it up, on the other hand, involves making creative use of receptive bilinguals 2 languages, namely the HL and in the United States, English. Before looking at these activities, I want to just briefly tell you what I mean by receptive bilinguals, how I'm using this term. Now, typically, we think of receptive bilinguals as it appears on the screen. I can understand it, I just can't speak it. This is the way Tanisha Bhatt, a Konkani speaker, Konkani is a language spoken in English, in India, and a student at Boston University, first defines herself in a blog. But yet, she adds to that, saying, one common misconception of receptive bilingualism is that the person cannot speak the language at all. People who are receptive bilingual can speak the language, but often run into trouble with grammar. Verb tenses may puzzle them, and they often cannot think of the appropriate tense while speaking. They may also find it difficult to speak a whole sentence because they cannot connect words. After many failed attempts to speak, they may give up on the language completely and resort back to monolingualism. This is really how I'm going to use the term receptive bilingual. Not, as the top line suggests, as somebody who cannot speak it, but rather as somebody who has difficulty speaking and may have given up on speaking it or writing it as a result of the difficulties encountered. With that in mind, the activities that I'm going to present are designed to enable receptive bilinguals to express themselves while minimizing the opportunity, the fear of failure. In so doing, these activities enable teachers to enact an important principle of HL teaching, namely to build on HL learners' motivations, goals, and life experiences. Another receptive bilingual who has also written about herself and published it online is Nikola Grace Radley. She is a receptive bilingual, receptive Polish bilingual. And Nikola Grace writes this: as I started to embrace my Polish side, I did begin to take Polish lessons. I was the only person on my course with Polish heritage. The rest were males that had Polish partners. It became apparent that my understanding of the language was advanced. While my reading and speaking were elemental, my writing was the worst. I can't write anything. So notice that Nikola Grace also can produce, but it's that her understanding, her receptive skills are greater than her ability to speak. She also tells us that her writing is weak. Nikola Grace has given us a pathway for improving her writing, starting with the oral language, which is her strongest skill, going through reading and perhaps speaking, and then ending up in writing, which is her weakest skill. The activities that I'm going to use in this video use students' receptive skills to scaffold their productive skills. These activities do two very important things. First of all, they use the from-to principles, which are a general principle of HL teaching that say, use what HL learners bring to the classroom to develop other skills. Now, specifically with respect to these activities, I'm going to show you how to use listening, typically the strongest of the skills, to strengthen reading, and from there to help students write, even receptive bilinguals. And I'm going to show you how the from-to principles can help you use real-life activities to design classroom activities that build on the functional skills that receptive bilinguals bring to the classroom. These activities also have the property of straddling the actual proficiency levels novice and intermediate. That is, they provide a bridge between the novice level, where students basically use other people's language and formulaic speech. They provide a bridge to the intermediate level, where students start to produce with language, to create with language. As I mentioned earlier, the two strategies I'm going to present involve appropriating other people's words and using bilinguals to languages. These strategies enable us to expand HL learners' functional proficiency, which is also an essential goal of HL teaching. In terms of the learning principles that come from science, these activities provide a way to inspire students. They provide a transcending purpose for learning, a purpose that goes beyond the activity per se, or wanting to get a good grade in the class. They give HL learners a sense of belonging in the class, and they are assets-based in that they recognize what students can do and build on that. So let's get to the activities. Let's start with change the genre. To illustrate how this activity works, I'm going to use the famous story by Sandra Cisneros, My Name. Now, I don't want this demonstration to go on for too long, so I'm giving you just a little piece of this story to show you how it works. And this little piece goes like this. In English, my name means hope. In Spanish, it means too many letters. It means sadness. It means waiting. It is like the number 9, a muddy color. It is the Mexican records my father plays on Sunday mornings when he is shaving, songs like sobbing. It was my great-grandmother's name, and now it is mine. She was a horse of a woman too, born like me in the Chinese year of the horse. You can take this reading and ask students, using the language that is in this reading, to create a poem. And this is what they might produce. In black, I have created a poem from the portion of the story of my name that you have seen. In blue is another piece of the poem that comes from a part of the story that I have not read to you. But a poem that students could create would look something like this. My name means sadness. My name means waiting. My name is muddy. My name is too many letters. My name was my great-grandmother's name, Esperanza, wild horse of a woman, strong like me, but who couldn't be all things she wanted to be. I would like to baptize me under a new name, a name more like the real me, a name more like all the things I want to be. Maritza or Zeze the X. Yes, something like Zeze the X will do. Every single sentence in this poem appears in the short story by my name. But notice it's been rearranged, and it's a very nice poem. This is the power of this technique of change the genre. It enables students to produce high quality work using somebody else's words. It's the first step in creating with language. And this is why this is something that receptive bilinguals can do and really enjoy. Here's some other adaptations you can do with a story like my name. Students can read the story aloud, just like I did with that little piece of the story. They can act the story, turning it into a play. They can create a song. And near the end of this video, I'm going to show you something else they can do. For now, let's go to the second activity, rewriting somebody else's words to make them your own. To illustrate this activity, I'm going to use a poem called Voces by a Cuban writer named Reinaldo Arenas. I'm not going to read this poem. I will simply tell you that it's a poem where he describes how Cubans arrive in the United States, Cuban refugees, right? It's a very moving poem and a difficult one to read too, because it describes some very painful experiences that Cuban refugees go through. Linguistically speaking, it lends itself really well to creative writing for receptive bilinguals. In blue, we see two lines that repeat themselves. We came. And here, in the second line, the poet says, we came by sea. In red, and down here again, we see three lines that repeat themselves. We arrived. And here the poet says, for example, we arrived strapped to the tire of a car for floating, right? In green, three lines that repeat themselves, we left. And here the poet says, we left pleading with sharks and the Coast Guard. In orange, it says, yes, we are the luckiest ones. The rest lie under the sea. The nice thing about this poem is that it contains sentence frames that our students can take and then fill in something else. So notice now that this is not taking somebody else's words completely, but it's taking some of these words and then adding bits and pieces to form a complete sentence with them, right? So following somebody else's sentence frames. This is a poem that a student in a class created with this activity. I'm not going to read it to you, but it's a brilliant poem and it's beautiful. And what Mayra did was to rewrite Arenas's poem to reflect the experiences of Mexicans coming to the United States. So instead of talking about traveling by sea and lying at the bottom of the sea, she talks about what it's like to cross the desert and to get lost in the desert. This activity doesn't just work well in HL classes with receptive bilinguals. It works extremely well in a mixed classroom with second language learners. Imagine asking your students to write a poem that explains how their particular ancestors from their ethnic group came to the United States. It becomes an inclusive writing, a creative writing activity, which lends itself to a lot of comparisons. Moving now to the third activity, mixing it up, which essentially involves translanguaging, that is, using the two languages that our receptive bilinguals bring to the classroom in a creative way. Now, one way you can do this, I said I was going to give you another activity you could do with my name. One thing you can do is to ask your students to rewrite something that is entirely written in one language, to rewrite it in two languages, making strategic use of code switching to create a mood, a rhythm, whatever it is that your students want to do. A little bit higher up, but perhaps much more interesting, is asking your students to produce something, to create something, a piece of writing that uses translanguaging. And this is exactly what my student, Carla González, did when she created a poem called My Latin Gift. I'm going to read it to you. It's a wonderful poem that shows you the full potential of this great activity. The poem is written in English and in Spanish. For those of you that don't speak Spanish, I have included in blue the bits and pieces that may not be easy to understand. So I translated them into English. Yes, soy American, but también Latina. Sé hablar English, español y Spanglish. Yes, teacher, I can speak English sin hablar español. Oh, disculpe, I meant I'm sorry. ¿Por qué no debo mezclar los dos idiomas? Yes, soy bilingual y estoy proud. Aunque a veces es stressful y challenging. Yes, mom, te puedo traducir para que hables con my teacher. Mom, I don't know cómo decirte lo que my teacher te quiere decir. Yes, sé hablar English, pero es difícil traducir. Apenas soy una niña. Me estoy frustrando. I'm scared. Ya no quiero traducir, me estoy equivocando. Maybe no soy bilingual. No puedo hablar ni English ni Spanish. Yes, voy a school para aprender, pero todos mis teachers hablan English. Casi nadie es como yo. Yes, soy Latina. Don't laugh porque no sé what a word means o porque la pronuncie funny. ¿Es de pecado ser Latina? Why so many críticas y risas? Mejor help me, educate me. Dame una mejor educación. Yes, soy Latina. Spanglish es un don. Para que me entiendan, déjenme traducirle. My language, Spanglish, is a gift. My Latin gift. This is a very moving poem that doesn't just use English to compensate for maybe things that the student might not have been able to express in Spanish, but actually uses English and Spanish in very strategic ways, strategic and poetic ways. You can see how any student will feel extremely proud of being able to create something like this. So this is a prime example, a great example of how to use code switching, translanguaging to get receptive bilinguals to start producing with language meaningful and deeply satisfying writing. And we see how this is also a very good example of how you can design activities with HL learners' motivations, goals, and life experiences in mind. To wrap things up, the 3 activities I have shown you: change the genre, make it your own, and mix it up, are good examples of how to use the from-to principles, specifically how to go from listening to reading to writing, and how to use everyday real-life activities to create classroom activities that get students to do meaningful writing with language. These activities straddle the actual proficiency levels novice and intermediate. Appropriating other people's words, which is what I do with the activity, change the genre and make it your own, involve using other people's words creatively. Whereas mix it up involve using both of the bilinguals' languages creatively. In both cases, you can get receptive bilinguals to produce creative and poetic pieces of writing that will make them feel comfortable producing with language. And this brings me to the end of this video. Please subscribe to your video, to our YouTube channel. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and share it with others. As always, we ask for your comments and ideas, not just about creating writing activities, the topic of this video, but comments and ideas about how to improve HL teaching and learning. Thank you.